Senate, and she went, let's see, from 1995 to 1999. She served in the Navy as a judge advocate after graduating from Boston College Law School. She has served in Norfolk, Virginia, Washington, D.C., and over in Bahrain in the Persian Gulf. Since leaving the military, she has worked for Morgan, Lewis, Bacchius, Jones Day, and Ogletree Deacons. I think I probably blended some of those law firm names together, so I apologize. But in any event, most recently, she has worked for Florida Power and Light as in-house counsel, and she currently resides in Palm Beach County, where she serves on various nonprofits and boards and volunteers with the Boys and Girls Club. So again, please welcome Ms. Pam Keith. I'm going to come back around and you can give your opening stump after I introduce Congressman Grayson. Our next guest, of course, is Congressman Grayson. Let me flip over here to the top. He has represented Florida's 9th Congressional District since 2013. Prior to that, he represented the 8th Congressional District from 2009 to 2011. And he currently serves on the Committee on Foreign Affairs and the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. And of course, both of these fine folks are candidates for U.S. Senate to replace Marco Rubio. So Congressman, come on up. And with that, Ms. Keith, go ahead and turn on your microphone. Mr. Grayson, go ahead and do the same, and Ms. Keith, take it away.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all so much for having me. It is an honor and a pleasure to be in Hillsborough County. I have been here several times before, and each time it just seems to get better and better. As mentioned, my name is Pam Keith, and the biography didn't tell you my early story. I am the daughter of a United States diplomat. My mom and dad were working for the U.S. government overseas when I was born. So I was actually born in Turkey. I lived in Morocco, and then we moved to Syria. Unfortunately, my parents divorced, and then I moved to the United States. I lived in Oakland, California. I was about 7 years old when I first lived in the United States. What makes that story interesting is that from 0 to about 7 years old, I knew only 2 things about myself. 1, I knew I was a girl. This was important. And 2, I knew that I was an American. And even as a child, I was taught that I represented my country everywhere that I went. And that it was very special that I was an American. That as an American, I could grow up to be anything I wanted to be. It was something that I knew made me special, but something that I learned to honor from a very early age. I didn't understand that there were divisions within our country until I was a little bit older. We moved to Lexington, Kentucky in the 1970s, and I learned something about segregation and racism. But even that did not change my love of my country, my belief that most Americans are good-hearted and worthy of your love and respect. That is a fundamental principle about who I am, and it guides every single thing that I do. So, with that said, my name is Pam Keith. I am the first African-American woman in the history of the state of Florida to run for the United States Senate, and I hope that this day I will impress you and get your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keith. Just as a reminder before Mr. Grayson speaks, if you have a question, raise your hand and I'll try to track you down. So with that, Congressman.
Thanks. I'm Congressman Alan Grayson, and I approve this message right from the get-go. Thank you all for putting the Bay in Tiger Bay. We have a Tiger Bay in Orlando, and I've been a member now for 8 years. And I'm pleased to be here with you all today. I do want to tell you that I think we have some real problems that need to be addressed. I'll give you some examples of that. Seniors have not had a raise in 40 years. In the last 40 years, the per capita income of the United States has gone up by 97%, and the purchasing power of Social Security benefits has gone down by 3%. I'll give you another example. We make a promise to seniors that we're going to cover all their health care needs when they hit the age of 65, and yet we leave out their eyes, their ears, and their teeth. That doesn't make any sense. I'll give you some more examples. Inequality is now higher in this country. I'm talking about economic inequality than it has ever been. Even in 1929, it wasn't as high as it is today. And we feel the effects of that in our healthcare system, in education, all across the board. We have 50 million people in this country who rely upon the government to eat. We have over 30 million people in this country who cannot see a doctor when they are sick. And in a recent examination, worldwide, a standardized test of mathematics, American students came in last, dead last. Now, I'd venture to say that mathematics is pretty much the same in Tokyo and Singapore and Frankfurt as it is here in the United States. And in fact, we had a number of students who scored well, but we also had a large number of students who scored very poorly. Another example of the inequality that's grinding against our society. What I want to suggest is that what this election is about this year is addressing those issues. actually grappling with them and coming up with the answers to our problems. And frankly, I've shown over my congressional career, I'm pretty good at that. I've passed more amendments on the House floor in the last 3 years than any other member of the House, even though I'm a Democrat and I lose every party line vote. Still, nevertheless, I've passed more than anyone else, 54 amendments. I've introduced more bills than anyone else. My Seniors Have Eyes, Ears, and Teeth Act, just in case there's any doubt about that, now has 100 co-sponsors. Slate magazine says I am the most effective member of Congress. Business Insider, not exactly a favorable audience for a liberal Democrat, says that I am the most productive member of Congress. And Time magazine said that I'm a standout member of Congress in a do-nothing Congress. I think what the American people deserve right now is action. Action against the trade deficit of $1 billion a day that has left us $11 trillion in debt to foreigners. Action against discrimination. Action against bigotry. Action against the things that keep us from being all that we can be. Because when you look past and underneath all these problems, you realize there's something very special about us. We don't have a common race. We don't have a common religion. We don't even have a common language. What we have is a common idea. And that idea is that we get the best from everyone. Regardless of what you look like, where you're from, who you love, what language you speak, it simply doesn't matter. That is the concept of America, and that's what I intend to promote in this election, as I've done for 5 years now. Thank you.
And everyone, just remember as you're asking your questions, state your name first for the benefit of our Garfield committee.
Joseph Clemens, Representative Grayson, Ms. Key, thank you for your service. Margaret Sanger was a known African-American racist and eugenicist of the early 20th century, and she founded Planned Parenthood. As a U.S. Senator, this is for both of you, would you encourage or continue the current funding of the genocide of our inner-city African-American children?
I assume you were directing that to me. Oh, okay, well, I'll take it. I always find a question to be really interesting based on the words used in that question. So, let me say that I categorically disagree with you when you use the word genocide, because you use that word because you start from the premise that you're talking about eliminating people, and I disagree fundamentally with that notion. I don't think a group of cells in somebody's body is a person. Now, that's number one. Number two, I absolutely support the funding of Planned Parenthood because abortion is just such a tiny little bit of what they do. And I'm unapologetic about it because I've used Planned Parenthood. I've gone to Planned Parenthood. I've gotten services there. I know that they treat so many women and help them to get the kind of positive preventative care that they need to make sure that they stay healthy for the duration of their lives. So yes, I do support the funding of Planned Parenthood. But here's the thing that really annoys me. Every time you get a bill in Congress, you feel like you must tack on something about your pet issue, even if it has nothing to do with the bill at all. Because you feel like if you keep ramming it down our throats, we are going to start agreeing with you. I don't like that, because it causes dissension rather than agreement. So, here's my proposal. If you put a rider on a bill that has nothing to do with health on Planned Parenthood, then I'm going to put a rider on it to tax ammunition. Because you see, I'm tired of playing defense. There is no chapter of your life in which you are going to welcome the government to come into your personal life and tell you what to do, ever. And I don't cede my individual citizenship rights because I happen to become pregnant. There is no chapter of my life when I think it's okay for the government to come into my life and tell me what I can do. And so long as I believe that, I will defend it with everything I've got.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. Congressman?
Well, I'm pro-choice, and I not only talk the talk, but I also walk the walk. I was very happy to see that Planned Parenthood opened up a clinic to provide health care to women in my district. I went to open it, and I went to stare down the protesters who came and said the exact kind of nonsense that you just heard from the gentleman to my right. I will say this, nothing personal, but there's a special place in hell for those who smear the dead. Now, what is this all about? I'll tell you what I think this is really all about. It's about this. The most fundamental right of all is the right to control your own body. Who am I to say to a woman or a man what that woman or man can do with his or her own body? That's what this issue is really all about. It's an effort by men in government to control the bodies of women. And I will fight that every chance I get. Thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth Belcher. I have a question for Representative Grayson. Before you become a senator, you have to be a successful candidate, and I'd like to know how you plan to be a successful candidate with your financial baggage. And I'm talking about the Cayman Island bank account, and I'm talking about the $17 million you lost in a scheme. And the timing to me is very questionable, and the fact that you refused to name the attorney who advised you to open up the Cayman Island bank account.
There is no Cayman Island bank account. My goodness, why do I have to put up with these kinds of smears? Just because I'm running for the U.S. Senate, I want to do some good for people. Let me tell you something about my campaign. My campaign is the only campaign in the entire country that's relying upon small donors. The only one. I'm the only member of Congress in the past two cycles, 2014 and 2012, raised most of his cash from people who gave less than $200 from our campaign. You want to talk about how you campaign? I'll tell you how you campaign in this country. Everyone else is on the take. Everyone else. That's how you campaign in this country. Everyone else is going to their lobbyists, their special interests, their billionaires, their millionaires, their multinational corporations, and they're hitting them up for $10,000 contributions to their campaigns directly, and then multi-million-dollar contributions to the super PAC. Welcome to America in the year 2016. Now, what am I doing about this? I'm trying to set an example and a counterexample. I'm trying to show in my campaign that there is another way to do this. That you can appeal to people around the county, around the state, even around the entire country. That there is a better way. That we don't have to cut the law into little tiny pieces and sell them off to the highest bidder the way everyone else does who gets elected. There is a reason why I've passed more amendments than any other member of Congress. There is a reason why I've written more bills than any other member of Congress, and it's because of the way that I campaign. Over 100,000 people have gone to senatorwithguts.com. They're very modestly named senatorwithguts.com, and it's co-website, congressmanwithguts.com, and contributed to our campaign. I'm doing this the right way, and I think I deserve a lot of credit for that.
Ms. Keith, I know that question wasn't directed to you, but I saw some looks there. I think you might have a follow-up with that.
I do have a little follow-up. I hate to disagree with you, Alan, but I also want to last through this campaign. I will also...
Pam, I don't even know what that means. Maybe you want to explain because it didn't make any sense to me.
Well, I'm also not receiving any contributions to major corporations.
Okay, I was referring to the people who actually got elected. There were 435 members of Congress elected in 2014. I was the only one out of any of those who got most of his money from small donors. And the same thing was true in 2012. I wasn't saying anything about your campaign. I was talking about the people who have already been elected, including me. I am one out of 435 and the only one.
Right. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Here's what I will say about this. I'm not going to opine about the hedge funds. That's really not my place. But what I will say is that, to the best of my knowledge, those hedge funds existed a year ago, 18 months ago. So the question is, why is it all of a sudden a problem now? See, my problem is I have a beef with hypocrisy. I have a beef because going after Alan Grayson in this circumstance has nothing to do with the hedge funds and everything to do with his challenge of another candidate. And what I don't like is when you are going to point to one person and say, hey, I don't like what you do. You should be excoriated. You should be, censored by your colleagues, and then ignore everything that those other people are doing. Everybody in this room is savvy. You know that the game of inside politics is dirty. You know that the party decides who they're going to back and who they're not going to back. And if you are not playing the game the way they like, they will do everything they can to get you out of their way. And if you think that what's happening to Alan Grayson is anything but that, you are mistaken. That's my right.
Congressman Grayson. I wanted to know what you meant when you told potential investors that the best time to invest was when there was blood in the streets.
Well, actually, you're not quoting me. You're quoting somebody named Rothschild 100 years ago. And again, I don't know where people get this information from, okay? I can't remember those words ever coming out of my mouth. You know, look, it's exactly the way that Pam said. There is a smear campaign going on right now against me because I'm ahead of the polls. If Pam were ahead of the polls, it would be exactly the same. Okay, there's a smear campaign. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that seniors deserve coverage for their eyes and ears and teeth. All they want to talk about is nonsense. I remember in the first debate between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, I don't know how many of you were watching it, in the first debate between the two of them, one of the reporters started to hawk, that's a Yiddish term by the way, hawk Hillary Clinton about her emails. And Bernie, God bless him, turned to the reporter and said, enough about the damn emails. Why is it that we are being forced and driven and wedged to think about something other than the real issues of this campaign? It's just a cheap smear tactic, just the way Pam described, and I don't think we should fall for it. By the way, based on the polls, nobody's fallen for it. We've been ahead in every poll since August.
This question, if it is a question, is for both of you. My name is Norma Bean. I'm a lifelong Democrat. Whether you run for office, be it locally, statewide, or nationwide, you're open for everything, so you should not be surprised at anything. Anything you've ever done or said or haven't done or haven't said is going to come out. So, what is the course? Why would you run for office if you didn't know this was going to happen?
I'll take that first. Norma, thank you for your question. I don't think the question is, are you ready for the idea that somebody's going to open up your life and scrutinize it? That's politics. But I think that it's fair to call a spade, right? This attack is timely, it is coordinated, and it is politically motivated. Now, you're right. Everybody should be prepared for the scrutiny of their behavior and their actions and their backstory, but that doesn't prevent us from saying, hey, you're being a hypocrite when you're doing this because you're perfectly accepting of unethical and untoward behavior in other members. I'm not saying that you ought not be tough. I'm not saying that you ought not be prepared. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be, accustomed to being scrutinized. But that doesn't mean the party gets a pass for playing dirty. And that's all I'm saying.
Dirty doesn't even begin to describe it. Look, I don't mind being standing accused of things I've done. I can live with that. I stand accused of the things I didn't do. And that's where we are at this point. And frankly, there are very few people in America who understand this as well as I do. Okay? I had somebody call my house and give a death threat to my 5-year-old boy because I wanted to vote for the health care bill. And what she said on the phone, on the speakerphone, when he hit the buttons, the speaker, was, if you vote for health care, I'll kill you. There's an interesting twist. If you vote for health care, I'll kill you. When I first ran for Congress, my twins were 5 years old. We had to literally turn off the TV for 2.5 months. What do I call them? The gentlemen on the other side were running ads that showed my head sliced in half diagonally. Can you imagine what that looks like to a 5-year-old? A 5-year-old screaming from the living room, Daddy, Daddy's dead. Mommy, Daddy's dead. Nobody else knows like I know what it's like to run for office. And the slings and arrows that get directed at you. And yet here I am. Here I am. By the way, that race that I just described, I won by 18 points. Okay? The biggest comeback in the history of the U.S. House of Representatives, ever. All right? So I'm a man. I can stand here. I can take it. And the voters don't care anyway because they understand it's not ever about the lies that they come up with. It's about what's good for America. Thank you.
My name is Doug Fairbairns, and this is primarily aimed at you, Mr. Grayson, and of course you may want to jump in on it. In past campaigns and public statements and all, you've mentioned things like using the ad hominem type of assault. That Linda Robertson was a K Street whore, Dick Cheney is a vampire bat, Rush Limbaugh is a hypocrite, Republicans are knuckle-dragging Neanderthals, Republicans want people...
I was right about that one, right? What are you reading from, sir? What are you reading from?
Oh, this is just, I don't want to skip it or misquote it.
Well, I know, but what are you reading from? Where'd you get it?
This is off my computer.
Off your computer? And what website were you looking at?
Beg pardon?
Where'd you print it from? What website?
Oh, I didn't. This is stuff I've accumulated from different news programs.
So you've been trolling me for years? Just on the internet, it's like cutting and pasting whatever.
No, I was interested in a man looking for running for public office, and I wanted to look at the kind of character he had, and so I looked at the
What kind of character do you have to do something like that?
I mean, I'm quoting your words. If I'm wrong or if I'm misquoting you, by all means, take me to task. If it's the truth, surely you're proud of it.
Look, honestly, if you have a real question,
I do. I'm going to get
what's
to
the
just
question? You're just basically spewing. That's all you're doing.
Well, I'm going to get to the question. Quite frankly, you talked to. I'll jump ahead. I'll jump over a couple of them. But you called Patrick Murphy, a fellow Democrat, there. What a lick-spittle pellet. Which, by the way, is really.
What do you mean, fellow Democrat? When did Patrick Murphy become a Democrat?
I'm sorry. I must have misread it. I must have misread it.
Wait a minute. Is this? I want to make sure I got this right. Are you talking about the Patrick Murphy who was a lifelong Republican until he decided to run for office? Is that Patrick Murphy?
I'm not.
Are you talking about the Patrick Murphy that had $2,300 to Mitt Romney's campaign? That Patrick Murphy?
Could be.
Okay, just want to make sure.
No, I'm sorry, I got the part of it. My question was the fact there that when you were asked about your hedge fund earlier, not today, but in a news release, you mentioned then that you really...
It's one question to a customer, sir.
Here's the question. You were then bemoaning the politics of personal destruction. Would you explain what personal destruction is when you call somebody a name or when somebody asks you about the hedge fund?
Is there anything you'd like to ask about America, sir? Oh, I don't think so. Is there anything you'd like to ask about health care? Anything you'd like to ask about, let's say, education? Anything you'd like to ask about our $11 trillion trade debt? Is there anything you'd like to ask about anything that matters to anybody in this room in their own personal lives? Anything at all?
When you say that the absence of health, government prepared health care is a Holocaust, I don't think that was a problem.
Okay, all right, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, okay? Now, this is an interesting thing. I'll give you the backstory. This may take a while, and certainly Pam deserves equal time. I just want to make that clear, okay? Let's talk about that. So I was on the floor of the House when President Obama came to give a speech during the Affordable Care Act debate, the Obamacare debate. And in the middle of the speech, the President said to the Republicans, I want your best ideas. You show them to me. We want everyone's best ideas to be in this Obamacare bill. And at that point, I don't have a piece of paper handy, but oh, there we go. The Republicans, when he said, I want your plan, the Republicans started to wave papers in the air. You can look this up. It's on C-SPAN. Okay, it's in the archive. Wave papers in the air. I said to myself, what the heck is that? I didn't know the Republicans had a health care plan. So when the speech was over and everybody had left the chambers, I went over to the other side. I looked on the floor. I found nothing but blank pieces of paper. The Republicans were waving blank pieces of paper in the air. And then I gave a speech the next day explaining what had happened, and then saying, well, they may not have their own health care plan, but everybody knows what it is. The Republican health care plan is don't get sick, and if you do get sick, die quickly. That's the Republican health care plan. Now, when they attacked me for that, when they attacked me for exposing them and telling the truth about them, they asked for an apology, sir, and I went down to the floor and I said, I apologize to the dead and their families and all the people who died because they didn't be able to see a doctor when they were sick. And I held in my hand the real problem, a Harvard study that showed that 43,000 Americans die each year because they can't see a doctor. That if you take two people, physically identical, one to the other, same gender, same race, same age, same smoking habits, same weight, the one without health coverage is 20% more likely to die. Now, maybe you wouldn't call that a Holocaust. But the fact is, sir, there are 43,000 of our fellow Americans, men and women, black and white, young and old, who are dying each year. You call that what you like. I want to save their lives.
Thank you, Congressman. Pam, anything you'd like to add on health care?
I have nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Wendy Cartwright. I'm going to change the topic a little bit. I appreciate what you both said on Planned Parenthood and your support, and I understand that, Senator Grayson, you have signed on to the ERA legislation. My question is, if you both are elected to Senate, what will you do to help move forward the Equal Rights Amendment? Because with that, the states won't be able to do a lot of what they're doing now with trying to remove health care access for women.
Pam, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit about the ERA, but I will tell you the challenge to the ERA is that you are in continuous legislative block before you can get that approved. But here's the thing that I'd like to talk a little bit about, which is women's equal pay, because that was really the essence of the ERA, if I recall correctly. And what we have this statute that, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and it says that, if you are being discriminated against your pay, based on pay if you're a woman, then you can go to court and you can sue. First you go to the EOC and then you go to court and sue. And so we actually have a statute that ensures that you cannot be discriminated against based on your gender and how you get paid. The problem is not that we lack legislation. The problem is that most women don't know that they're getting underpaid. Because you don't actually have access to the information necessary to figure that out. It's not like you can walk down to the hall to your colleague and say, hey, Bill, how much are you getting paid? Or call the manager that's across the country and say, hey, how much are you getting paid? The bottom line is we have no mechanism for women to figure out that they're getting underpaid. Because without that information, you don't know that you should be suing. Right? You don't know. And that's not just true about women, that's true about minorities, older people, people of different religions. You have no way of knowing that you're being mistreated until you figure it out. And most of the time, it's not until you've been fired or you've left the employment that you figure out, maybe I have a basis for suing. So the problem is an absence of information, and that's really something that we need to tweak at the EEOC. We have to figure out a mechanism for people to get the information they need in order to know that they're being underpaid. Because that practice of underpaying women is permitted due to a lack of information, not a lack of statutes. So that's what I'd like to address. The reality of how hard it is to figure out that you're being underpaid. That's the bigger problem. So that's what I want to say.
Pam is absolutely right. If I recall correctly, the first bill I ever voted on in Congress was called the Lilly-Ledbetter bill. Maybe Pam wants to discuss that as well. This is a pervasive problem. The Supreme Court decided a very bad case in which they said that the statute of limitations starts to run even before you know there's even a problem. And we did our best in the Lilly-Ledbetter case to, statute in order to try to correct that problem, but the problem remains. Now with regard, and by the way, I think Pam is so right that I'm prepared to introduce a bill to do exactly what she just said and to try to get that bill passed like many other Grayson bills have passed. With regard to the Equal Rights Amendment, first of all, I support the amendment. I'm on record as being a co-sponsor of that. And secondly, I support the extension, if you can even call it that, the resolution to extend the artificial deadline that was created for ratification of the ERA. We are only just a tiny number of states short of actually having the Equal Rights Amendment as part of the U.S. Constitution, the first amendment of the Constitution in my adult lifetime. And I could think of no better way to acknowledge the destruction of the glass ceiling in this country, except possibly